Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. Today's show, we're going to be talking about the Flourishing Capital Community Council. We're going to have some quant time for those that are watching. We've got Paul, so we'll introduce him in a bit. And then obviously we're going to go into overall market talk as well. So we'll be back in a bit. You don't want to miss today's show. Stay tuned. All right, guys, we're back. So, as mentioned, Community Council, quant time. I mean, just with the word quant and Wall Street, I'm sure we can have plenty of questions on that. And obviously, market talk, because I'm seeing a lot of red. I would like to have some positive energy today. I want some positivity.
There we go. It's 2022, guys. Come on. We got this.
Yeah.
Let's pick it up. Hold.
2021 is in the rearview mirror. Even more importantly, we're 2 years out from 2020. So let's just keep rolling.
Okay. So, Community Council, Flourishing Capital. What is this about? Who wants to bring this up?
Eric, you and I can kind of go back and forth on this one, but
actually, before we even get to that, let's actually just introduce Paul. I want to do that. We'll have everybody what the Community Council part is, because we don't want them just to be looking at this guy Paul and saying, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah, who is that mystery man in that little Brady Bunch, setup we've got going, right?
Yep.
Hey, Brady Bunch was a classic show. Come on,
all right. So, mystery man, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. So I'm Paul Lieberman. Let me first say I'm thrilled to be a part of Flourishing Capital. I'm excited about improving the current offering in addition to building new product. So a little bit about me. I studied economics and public policy at the University of Chicago and financial engineering at the MIT Sloan School of Management. I started my career in fixed income research and then moved to equities, equity derivatives, ETFs. I've worked at some of the largest investment banks and asset managers around the world, always in a quantitative capacity, whether it was in quantitative research or quantitative portfolio management.
So in other words, we now have two really freaking smart people on the team, and Eric Sheraton and I can just kind of sit in the background and
exactly.
Try and look pretty.
We can just cheer them on.
Go, guys, go.
Market talk's going to be fun today.
You guys,
seriously.
That's what I'm waiting.
I like to position it as we have two guys with high IQ and two guys with high EQ. I value both of them, right?
And then one guy that's
very low. As you
so
can
what about the working high?
and the one guy with major mojo. Let's just leave it at that. That is our mojo right there. If you ever cut your hair, Sheraton, it's like all the magic will just deflate out of everything we're doing. So just don't.
And I would never do that.
Crypto would crumble.
Yeah.
So I know we're going to have plenty of questions for Paul. I think we need to have a show dedicated towards Paul, just to explain what a quant is, its past experience, and then I know we're going to be touching on a little bit about it with the performance of FAIT, but really to get to know, I kind of like that, to know about the financial side of things. I think that's kind of interesting to see this shift into the blockchain space, crypto space. So we got to have you on another time.
See how quickly we get kicked to the curb, guys? This is what happens, right? You bring in a smart guy. Everybody wants to talk to him.
Fresh meat. That's it.
They want to hear about him. They want to hear from him.
What the hell?
Not us.
I'm jealous. Okay, fine. I see how it's going to be. Did I wake up on the wrong side of the bed? I might have. I'm a little punchy today. So, Community Council, Sheraton, tell me about it.
Well, I think something that was bound to happen once we started going down this path of expanding the community and establishing the fact that we encourage healthy dialogue, useful dialogue. Like, we want people talking in the community, but we prefer it be not just memes all the time. And I think that's what we've cultivated pretty well. And it shows if you go to the Telegram, it's just chatter, and you can find something useful in there. So we figured, why not try to build something really stable around this. We've got a good group of users that are just always contributing, nothing but, whether it's hype, information. We've got, Lint, who's probably here watching right now. If you're in the Telegram, you see that he's posting, novels of, reviews of AMAs or what's been going on. And I think it's about time that we expand and solidify a group of people that the rest of the community can look to and say, all right, these guys are, working closely, and they have the ear of, the CTO, the CEO, the CMO, and, they just provide an invaluable part to the company that I think we're excited to expand on.
So what you were saying is that Flourishing team is really starting to listen to the community, improve upon FAIT, and wants to get them more involved.
More involved,
Yeah,
and I'd say that one of the big things is that, and we've talked about this before, is if you go to other communities and even if you try to make a useful suggestion for functionality or maybe comment on even price action, you're not going to find, unless you're fudding on purpose, and if you're out there, we will get you, but you're not going to find any of us banning you because you would like to see X, Y, and Z in FAIT's functionality. And so I think that's kind of where this sprouted, is people found out that they were, not being kicked for having an opinion.
True.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I mean, so I've always said that there are two secret weapons that we wield at Flourishing Capital. The first is the fact that we work on innovative, really hard problems, and credit to the team on that. The second is you guys, right? Our community is one of our secret weapons here. And so we're thinking about it and going, okay, so we need a sounding board both ways. We need folks that the community can go to, sort of condense, feedback. The other side of it is that, it's an independent sounding board for important decisions for us, right? It kind of keeps our compass straight. So one of the things that you guys know quite well with the show and with the community is, Will and I kind of started this about a year ago, and we're still active in the community, right? To be sure, there are a lot more voices, and we're completely grateful for that. But now we want to add a few more from the community, not necessarily from Flourishing AI. And so that's the idea, really, is to provide this group that is sort of a consolidator of really good ideas to help us really create a better product. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, a lot of the good ideas we've had came from the community. And and you'd be surprised that, some of the ideas people come up with, and they're just easy to do. So we just do them.
We do them.
It'll take 5 minutes.
And just to throw a shout out to the community, I mean, Sheraton, you're spot on. What's been cultivated is a really healthy dialogue, and I can't tell you how rare that is. And even before I joined the team, I was looking at the Telegram chats and watching the interactions and seeing what kind of community members were contributing or talking, and it's really both impressive and rare to see just the kind of communication that we have with the community. And to Sheraton and Eric's point, that's exactly what we want to cultivate. And just like Will said, that ability to get ideas from the community, the beauty is there's literally no bad ideas, right? And the more good ideas you get, it's more for us to sift through and see what we can do quickly, what we can do long term, what we don't need to do, right? We're not going to do everything, but at least we are getting that dialogue with the users, because knowing how they want to see things, knowing how they want to do things is going to make the product ultimately better. So it's really cool to have that kind of feedback and interaction.
Well, anybody that's in the community now that's interested in joining this, what's the process like? I mean, are you guys going to be interviewing people? You're going to see how long they've been part of the community? Do they have to hold maybe a certain amount of AI tokens? Do we get too far into that, or keep it basic?
No, I think you're right on point with that. You know, what we've been laying out is really a series of qualifiers. Yes, you have to hold AI tokens. Yes, you have to be positive, you know, not positively, but you have to be active in the community, right? You can't just show up and kind of hide in the background. We want people that are actively involved and engaged. So actively involved and engaged is really just behind the, you know, the holding AI is most important. And we're really looking for the people that are most engaged. If you spend the time in the community and you're interacting and you're providing feedback and support to other community members and you know, look to a handful of other members that have been just supremely active in it, and that's what we want to see, because those are the people that are going to be able to give us the best feedback, frankly, and are going to have the best interactions with the community, because the community already knows and hears them. So, you know, really it becomes, you know, we're going to do a nomination process. We've got a couple of people that we're automatically pulling in, but we're setting up mission statement and purpose and all of these things so that they have a sandbox that they can play in that will give them the ability to really, you know, give us the kind of feedback and help and oversight that we need. And one thing I will hint at is, you know, we're looking to fire up the initial group of council members within the next week, primarily because one of the things that we're going to ask them to do is do some beta testing on UpLink prior to launch for us. So they're going to get an insider's look, right?
Okay.
Isn't that nice? So they're going to get to see the real deal before it goes live and help us bang out any last minute bugs or issues that we find. So really excited to be able to begin, you know, bringing the community members in this way. And we'll be pushing out more. You'll hear from Sheraton over the course of this next couple of days. We do have a form, you know, a nomination form that we're going to ask folks to fill out if you've got somebody you think should be on the council.
And look, I mean, you guys, I mean, we can see within a group who's the most active, who's the most positive, who's always just there, right? I mean, whenever the price goes up, you have the typical moon boys or people that just jump into the chat. They're all excited. They're there. Things start to fade out. They leave. The true believers, they're there all the time. They're always communicative. They're always there. So we know who you are. I mean, we see them always there. One thing I want to bring up, though, with the community council is that this is going to primarily be on Discord, right? So
correct.
Discord, not on Telegram, where it's kind of like all over the place. It's going to be nice, organized, and protected. So the invite only, right? So that's cool.
Correct.
Yeah, Stepan has done a great job of building out, you know, what will be, like you said, a more organized, friendlier, hopefully, like you said, we got all the moon boys that show up at price action. We're hoping that this Discord ends up being an even more locked in, tighter community, and so yeah, we're looking forward to having everyone there.
Okay. And we'll do next week's show. We'll do a deeper dive on the community council, and we'll introduce a few of the members, kind of thing. You know, so more to come on that. I don't want to take too much time on it, but there's a lot to look forward to in that regard. But I know, you know, community cares about the council, but I know they want to hear from Paul. So let's.
That's it.
I don't want to, you know, take too much of his time, because he's got a lot of good info and you know, feedback.
All right, so there will be a form available. So Carter, you're going to provide the form. You're going to put that into the Telegram group for those that are interested, especially for those that are interested to see or have some information about UpLink and to help test it out. Because the one thing I keep saying all the time, and I love you guys for this, is that you're actually releasing a product. You're not saying, stay tuned for UpLink by the end of January, where we're going to put this on our roadmap and say coming Q4 of this year. It's going to be live. It's going to be up. Those that are lucky enough to join the community council, get into it, fill out the form.
Yeah.
In engineering, we like to joke that instead of spending time building a roadmap, we build product.
Yeah, you guys are fast at that. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I couldn't be more thrilled with the community council. And so again, you know, please jump on, fill out the form, nominate people who you think are, you know, great candidates. And, you know, you can nominate more than one. That's fine. You nominate yourselves. So we'll compile why not? We'll compile everything. And again, you know, sneak peek at UpLink, involvement in product and sort of discussion with our team It's a great opportunity. You know, and I say that both ways. It's a great opportunity for us really to learn from you. So thank you. And now let's talk about markets and why they're all red and how we can get the hell out of that.
Well, we need Quant time first. We need more information from Paul.
That's right.
One thing I do want to bring up, I'm going to actually check this out. For those that aren't aware, Flourishing Capital, you guys updated your website, brand new.
Oh yeah, that's
great.
I don't think we even talked about that last time, right? We talked about
you're right. Yeah.
We just slipped that sucker in.
We just kind of ninja dropped it, right?
Yeah.
So the website, I don't see Paul on there yet, but I want to see some faces. I want to see photos because right now it's just text on the about page. So I want to see everybody that's there. We need to expand.
You know, I asked for photos, and Will kept sending me images, screen captures from his Doc Brown outfit, and he obviously wasn't
on
taking
his
it
dune
seriously.
buggy.
Yeah, and then he's got his kid racing around in his little electric dune buggy. I mean, it's just,
you know what? Sometimes quirky team photos is a good thing. I mean, it works with this team. I'll just say that, and not to offend anybody, but I mean, I would put up a silly photo. Why not? It works. You don't always have to be black and white and all professional. Sometimes showing some fun and colors is sometimes good to see.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
We live in that day and age, right? I
whatever.
All right, we had this before. Quant time. So, Paul, you had introduced yourself again. Thank you for joining us today. I've been telling the team I want you on the show over and over and over again since we first heard about you. Do we want to go over FAIT's performance, the updates, how she qualifies, disqualifies tokens? How far into FAIT do you want to go? And do you also want to first actually explain, I guess, what a quant is?
Yeah, maybe that's a great better place to start, Jason. Just quantitative research. You know, a lot of people not in the space don't really know what quantitative research is, and it's just that. It's the process of quantifying something through research, whether it's an asset's exposure to the overall market swings, that is beta, or an asset's excess return that can't be explained by the market, that is alpha. These concepts have been around for 60 plus years in traditional markets like equities, but really haven't been applied or spoken about or used much in crypto space. And I think part of the reason for that, or a major reason for that, has been Bitcoin's absolute dominance in size relative to all other coins. And because of this, the press and mainstream media don't really talk much about the 8,000 or so other coins. But Bitcoin's dominance has been steadily declining. And recently, I think dipping just below 40% of total crypto market cap. As this continues to happen, and as the percentage of market share of Bitcoin declines and altcoins rise, the need and focus on broad crypto market indices, diversification will grow. And with it, concepts like crypto alpha and crypto market beta will grow as well. So really, the process of quantitative research is quantifying performance, quantifying and the development of quantitative processes in order to capture performance.
Now, what ultimately also just made you decide to get into crypto, though? I mean, I think that's also the bigger question. You're saying that the financial world, they're starting to learn or get into blockchain. They're looking at Bitcoin. You know, they're tipping their toes. But I got to tell you, from my research personally, from all the other crypto projects that I've seen in the past 3-4 years, I've never seen a quant before. So when a team said that they have a quant, I'm like, what is this? What do you mean?
He's a
I looked
unicorn.
up. I mean, everybody can Google it to learn more. But what are you doing here, man? What are you doing in this crypto space now?
Well, I think it's an exciting new asset class that the underlying technology, and I can talk about this a little bit more in general, but you know, it took me a little while to understand the underlying blockchain technology and to understand that this isn't going away, and that ultimately it's going to be a source of of asset pricing for everything. I think ultimately all assets will be tokenized. And I wanted to, I knew a lot of the processes that I had in place that would work in traditional markets, like pricing credit spreads and pricing equities, would work. Some of those processes would work in crypto space. Some wouldn't, and would need some adjustment, but some would. And I thought it was an exciting, yet to be discovered space, obviously growing incredibly quickly, space to apply new techniques, old and new techniques.
Okay. So I believe, so you had mentioned you went to Sloan Business School.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cream of the, one of the top of colleges out there, right? For business purposes. Do you,
right.
how did, from that start, I guess I'm also just curious to know, do you, from reaching out to like your other classmates, or I know this is probably going back time, but do you see any of them also starting to get into the blockchain space as well, or they're kind of still sticking to like traditional finance?
No, I think for sure, I haven't reached out to many of them, but I think for sure a lot of them are headed into that space. I mean, clearly with the MIT background, everyone's sort of touching the world of information technology and computer science, so they're intimately familiar, whether they're involved in the industry or not, are intimately familiar with the development of the asset class and blockchain technology. So yeah, I should imagine a fair number of my classmates are in this space.
So Eric, we have I see some of the questions, but I just have like, so I just have so many questions also, like in the back of my head, I'm like, I see this list and I'm like, I have so many questions on my own.
Bring it.
That's why, again, I want Paul to come back on the show. I want to just have like an open, casual, just conversation about, you know, the like his history and overall trends and how everything has kind of gotten up to this point in time. So I don't know if you still want to go. I mean, it's again up to Paul to the, you know, how personal you want to get, but I know a specific part of the show we do want to talk about FAIT, because you did come on board to help with the whole analytics up, I guess, for lack of better words, upgrading or checking efficiency, performance. So do you guys want to get into that more? I'm leaving it up to you. This is your spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the most interesting questions I think we can ask you, Paul, and you know, we've talked a lot about this, so it'd be great to sort of share this with the community. What's your approach to building sustainable alpha?
Yeah, so the approach to building sustainable alpha is the establishment, I think, of a virtuous cycle, empirical research and development. So, you know, one can use all the latest techniques in machine learning to discover tons of new relationships, new factors, new insights. However, the key is to ensure that these empirical findings are based on sound economic rationale, right? If you've got to be able to explain your findings. And when you can do this, there's good reason to believe that these results are repeatable and can generate long-term alpha. And that's really the key, because I think too many folks, especially younger folks in the computer science world that don't really come from, say, an economics background, will jump onto machine learning techniques and find new things or processes, and just go with it without questioning the findings. And there's a lot of information out there, more than we know what to do with at this point. And you've got to be able to explain it, rationally explain your findings. And when you can do that, then you're onto something.
So you're basically differentiating between data and knowledge. in effect, right? I mean, that's the difference, right? So, yeah,
knowing how to
that's a good
process the
point.
data based on
and good knowledge and bad knowledge, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and there's a lot of the former, there's a lot more of the latter out there, right? I mean, that's kind of why we created this whole thing. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here, and so on. So, okay, so now that we understand that, right? So a more sort of systemic rationale for building alpha, and it's something that takes into account, things like Sharpe ratio, delivering, returns that are well in excess for an associated risk level. I guess that naturally lends itself to, you've spent a lot of time in the traditional finance world or TradFi world, right? So what do you think that DeFi can learn from TradFi and vice versa?
Sure. Well, DeFi and the crypto space is already taking all the traditional financial functions like borrowing, lending, trading, asset management, etc. That's already happening. But to what I was saying before, from traditional financial asset pricing concepts like beta and alpha, it's not so easy. If I want to look up, some coins beta to the market, like if the market goes up, everyone sort of refers to the market sometimes, or some people refer to the market in different ways. The market goes up 5% because of some event. Should I expect this coin that I'm holding to go up 5%, or should I expect it to go up 10%? No one's sort of distributing beta exposure or thinking about it, and that's a pretty basic concept that should be ingrained in the DeFi and the crypto space. And in traditional finance, I think the vast majority of people that work in a traditional financial capacity still haven't really learned or come to the realization, the stark realization that ultimately one day all assets will be tokenized. And
that's a big statement.
It's going to take time. It's going to take a long time to get there, but there's going to be a point in time where it's going to just start to happen very quickly. And right now we're in a little bit of a state of limbo because of regulatory issues, but once all that sort of over the next 5 years we start getting through this, then the two worlds sort of might be indistinguishable at some point.
Well, last week, and not to get too far into it, but Will, I think you had brought it up that Radio Shack is now getting into the blockchain space. I mean, we're seeing this huge shift with large companies, corporations that are slowly tipping their toes and getting back into everything. And I think that they're doing this to test the regulatory, the legal aspect, security aspects. Everyone's kind of just taking a seat back to see kind of what happens to the first to market companies.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things have to be put in place. Paul knows about this from the number of regulatory things that have to happen in equities. But we're seeing these, companies try to dip their toes in from both sides, right? Even in the crypto side, you'll see some exchanges now trying to tokenize stocks, right? And they'll offer it, but it's only relevant in certain jurisdictions you can trade those. And they're very thinly traded still. And from the other side, you see traditional game companies incorporating NFTs, companies like Radio Shack that are trying to rebrand themselves via, doing some kind of NFT thing,
Nike, yep, big companies.
We're seeing, kind of from both sides, it's being chipped away a little at a time. And regulators see this stuff, and I think they're really confused, I'll be honest. Yeah, they don't really know what to do. There's not really a precedent for a lot of this stuff.
I mean, the digitization has been, decades in the works, right? I mean, most people, when they think about Wall Street, they think about a big pit that's full of just paper everywhere and guys yelling at each other, waving around pieces of paper. That's not how it works anymore, right? I mean, it's all servers in New Jersey, right? so this is just the next logical step, right? Is putting it on the Web3, chains. So.
Well, so Paul, I got to ask you. So before you joined the Flourishing Capital team, and Eric will correct me if I'm wrong, but so FAIT, you guys created this baby, right? She's learning, right? She's doing her own thing, and now Paul joins after the fact, right? You weren't, or were you there from the very start, or you joined afterwards? I just want to make sure with like the time period.
FAIT was already live for a long time before Paul joined. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm just bringing it up to the next question. So from the quant aspect to where you're now meeting FAIT, right? Because on the past shows, whenever we talk about FAIT, we don't like Stefan. He's not here. Cannonball's not here. She's not a bot, right? She's not something that we're manipulating, controlling. She's her own entity, right? So she's out there. She's learning. She's trading. But now we have Paul. So the quant, he comes on board. You come on board. What updates or analytics have you seen, or like what's going on like in the back end here?
Yeah. So Will and I are continuously talking about improvements to the process. I prioritize quantification of performance. So the better we can quantify where and how performance is being generated, the more likely we'll be able to harness what works and eliminate what doesn't work. And that's really the key. So if you have a process in place, that's how you fine tune it and improve upon it. When you can track performance and really track where it's working, where it's not working. So that's so funny.
Cannonball, I literally just put up your name and then you just appeared.
We're talking at the same time. Sorry,
you're up. So I was just saying, FAIT, she's not a bot. She's a real, she's her own identity, and I just have my own personal. I have like a conflict within my own head, trying to not ask my kind of questions. So I know you guys want to keep it on FAIT. So you got to help me out on this part, because I don't know how deep you guys want to go, or for different traits, characteristics.
Well, generally, Paul comes from a background that has a lot more rigor to it in regards to testing hypotheses, doing back tests of performance, and like measuring like all this stuff out. So he's bringing a lot of that background to FAIT, and not only improving the current version of FAIT in a lot of ways, generating a lot of new insights as to how he could do things, but also working on new models and new ways entirely that FAIT could trade that we haven't even thought about before.
Yeah, I mean, so FAIT herself, I have introduced her to other colleagues at the office. I've explained it to her. And unfortunately, also we see it on social media, on Twitter. Their last thought process is, so she's, a lot of them don't know even what a bot is, but they're saying, so it's like a machine or something, right? And I'm like, no. Then I have to re-explain it again a few more times, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, I get it. All right, so now like they have that aha moment where like, oh, this is like actual artificial intelligence. And it kind of like hits them. Does something like this kind of exist within the traditional marketplace? Because, and I'm just curious to know this as well, because I know with like Forex, just regular stocks, some programs you need like licenses, right? And it is more centralized. Whereas now with the blockchain space, everything is decentralized. So something like FAIT has like literally no boundaries. Whereas if she was in the traditional stock market, would she kind of be more limited? That makes sense?
Paul could answer.
Way off.
You mean from a regulatory perspective? Is that what?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like, or just with regular stocks or even in Forex. I know not everybody could just get into that type of a market. A lot of them do, to run the programs, you need a license. I'm not like, would something like FAIT even be able to exist in something like that?
It would, but you would probably need to be, you would need a license, right? It's all a matter of licensing, right? So if you're an IRA, yeah, you could, if you were managing separately managed accounts, you could have something like a FAIT run in own portfolio, but you would have appropriately licensed.
Yeah, but exactly. So that's what I'm getting at. If I was open up like an Ameritrade account, a TD Ameritrade account, or just go through a broker, the broker itself isn't gonna provide me access to a tool like that, right? I'm just thinking outside the box again. No, I have so many questions.
Yeah. So no, I mean, look, there are registered investment advisors that will. Some of them have processes that I wouldn't say they're like FAIT, but other bots. I mean, there are lots of bots out there, and other automated processes, whether AI driven automated processes, but this is clearly something unique in the crypto space, and it can trade in multiple different capacities, exchanges. So it's very different in that respect.
Well, that's how I'm also just seeing it. Like there's just no boundaries for FAIT in this type of an environment, whereas opposed to the finance side, they're kind of. I think there probably are limitations to that.
Sure.
Guys, you gotta help me out here. I could just ask my question.
The show.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, my system crashed on me. I'm like, this is perfect.
Good to have you back.
About me anyway today. See, I can just leave now.
Should we move on to the next topic?
Well,
I mean, I was about to ask, like, maybe we should talk about sort of the carnage in the markets right now, and what are we thinking? What are we seeing in the charts and all those sorts of things?
If you guys haven't covered it, real quick, Jason, if you guys haven't covered it, I would love to have you talk a little bit about the changes that have already been made to FAIT and, the kind of performance you guys are seeing even just this morning that I was seeing across internal chat and things that are happening would be great to share with the community.
But then also how FAIT looks at tokens for like a grading type system. Then we'll go into market talk. I think those are the two most asked questions as well. So how is her performance being updated, analyzed, always being improved, and then give us some information about the whole grading aspect of the tokens that she looks at.
Yeah, so
that's for you, Will.
I wasn't sure if Paul or I was going to answer it, but sure. We're very much looking through markets that have the most profitability in back tests. And that's kind of how we select them and prune out stuff, right? If we see that something would have performed really well, then it gets higher priority going forward, right? If that makes sense. And Paul's brought a whole new level of rigor, like I said earlier, to how we back test, how we measure performance and things like that as well, which we've integrated a lot of that into FAIT now, as well as better modeling in general around the prediction of markets, like how you predict it. So as you know, FAIT takes a bunch of data and then comes up with a prediction about where the market is going in the future. How that happens, like I had somewhat of an understanding of it from a computer science background, but Paul's able to take a crack at it from the data science, basically from the economics and quant background. And we merged these ideas together and came up with an even better model. And we're still tweaking around with it. There's a lot of stuff that are inputs to FAIT that we as humans have to adjust and tweak, kind of like you would tweak a go-kart, right? You see the tension isn't right in the suspension or whatever, It's like, oh, well, it still drives, but, you can kind of optimize it here and there. Now, that being said, Paul is also working on a entirely new way that FAIT can trade, and that's in progress. It's one of the big features that's coming out later that we're really, really excited about. And there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do with that.
Is this going to be like an add-on to what she does, or is this going to be an entire like upgrade to like everything?
It's going to be an entirely new trading system, like a new way of, I don't know if you are able to explain to it a little better than the way that I do it, Paul, but
these are the type of combos that I like. This when we get like
right. This is now you're getting into
the
dirt.
This is the good
This is
Well, Jason, we're working on several different things. One thing that I'm definitely keeping an eye on is as altcoin assets grow and as borrow rates come down, which I think they will due to competition. I'm going to turn my attention to the development of market neutral strategies, and those strategies work very well when volatility goes up, and it doesn't matter whether the overall market is going up or down. You can make uncorrelated returns. So that's something that I'm going to certainly take a very close look at.
That's a huge difference. FAIT right now is a directional strategy. She makes a forecast about the direction of the market. What Paul's talking about is a trading system that doesn't care if the market's going to go up or down. All it cares about is that the market has a certain level of volatility to it and certain correlations between assets. It's fundamentally different.
So one of the things I'd point out, and sort of cutting through the chase for again, simplifying it for folks like myself who understand simple things, right? What this means for the community and what this means for FAIT, the product and the interface with the tool, is that these guys, Paul and Will, are bringing more functionality to her and giving you, the user, more ways to make decisions about how your funds are managed and invested for you, right? So it's almost like, they're setting up swim lanes. You want to be in the fast lane, you want to be in the slow lane, you want to be in the medium lane. And, do you want to be more risk, less risk? So what you're going to see, and, kick me through the screen if I'm giving away too much, guys, but what you're going to see is over time, a sort of growth and proliferation of these, sort of strategies and tools and ways that you can ask FAIT to manage your assets for you. And that nobody does that. Like, that is so far ahead of where the market is right now and what's available to the average user, that we're literally, it's not lapping the field. We've done 3 marathons in the time that the field's gotten through the first 200 yards of their race, right? Like, we're just absolutely blazing new trails here, and that is what is most exciting to me. And just to put you on the spot, guys, timeline, what are you thinking in terms of how long before we begin to see some of these bigger changes and bigger sort of swim lanes, so to speak, be stood up and folks being able to interact with them?
So we're making these kind of iterative changes as we go. We actually have a number of them live now that we've put up recently. The very big changes will take some time to do because it's just there's a lot of stuff that has to be built for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's exciting from my standpoint is we're doing a lot of design work on the dashboard itself, right? We touched on the launch of the new website, and to just kind of draw a line of sort of connection for everybody. The visual language of the website and the stuff that we're doing on the website is going to translate over into everything else that you see and interact with from us. So the dashboard is going to get, both an upgrade in terms of look, feel, usability, but then also, again, going back to our community council, we're going to be getting suggestions and taking input from the community in regard to different ways that they'd like to, mix up the data. How do they want to see their performance? What are the things that are important to them to be able to see in a graphical interface that gives them the ability to either make more informed decisions or feel better about what's going on with their portfolio, or just inform them more about what's happening with the investments that FAIT's doing for them. And so this is all part and parcel to this up leveling that we're pushing for. So, you know, the folks that have been watching the AMAs religiously, right? We were super excited just before the holidays, and you know, we've got UpLink coming and all this great stuff. But I mean, again, you know, I cannot stress it enough. We're just scratching the surface of the goodness and the stuff that's going to be coming to market from us from, you know, for 2022 and beyond. So, you know, this is I'm just
engagement within the group. I'm seeing more an increase of curiosity as well, right? So as everything starts to grow, which is also good for engagement. Unfortunately, again, we saw everything was looking good, and now we're back into the red a bit. So
yeah. So I mean, you know, last week we were pretty bullish on the market, and everything, the technicals wise, looked good. It's just that the FOMC threw a wrench into everything and just crushed literally every market. It's red, like not even just
equities, crypto, everything. Yeah.
You guys want to go into market talk? We're at like 46-minute mark.
It's time. Let's do it. This is the good stuff, right? Sure.
This is, I mean, I think everything is still on track to what Will was showing us with the charts. I mean, I'm hoping that's still the case. One thing that I did want to bring up was that whole incident with, I think it was Kazakhstan. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
They literally shut the internet off, which then caused, I believe it was like was it a Bitcoin node or some connections to then?
Yeah, the hash rate dropped considerably. Yeah. I guess a lot of the miners had moved there because they had to leave China, as you remember last year, right?
Sure.
To put some numbers on it, the last numbers I saw were the hash rate in China is virtually zero. I mean, it's single digits at this point after being 70% or something to that effect 2 years ago. The hash rate is now about 1/3 United States and sort of the second country after the United States in terms of contributing hash rate, to the tune of something like 15%. Don't quote me on that, but that's directionally correct, is Kazakhstan. So when Kazakhstan goes offline, that's kind of a big deal in the miner world.
That's kind of, yeah.
All the miners moved to where they got the cheapest electricity, unsurprisingly.
Which is Kazakhstan.
But that may be in countries which are not the most stable, right?
Yeah.
Which is Kazakhstan, exactly.
Not to get like too political or anything like that, but do you think, because we always talk about like manipulation, right? So in crypto space, if you have the power to manipulate it, if it's in your favor, why not? You guys think like somebody from like in the back of Kazakhstan was like, if this happens, this shit's gonna dump and I'm gonna short it? Do you think this is like an oversight type thing? Because this I mean, at first, if there's
it's an interesting thought
there, right? I mean,
yeah, like at first I thought, okay, Bitcoin is dropping, right? So all the Kazakh miners just shut down operations, but then it turned out to be something different. But you can kind of see it, right? Like, why wouldn't they shut it down if Bitcoin breaks the 42 mark?
But that's also something scary to kind of think about, because who's to say the next chart that's looking healthy, good, and all of a sudden somebody at, I don't know, somebody at Kazakhstan's like, we're going to turn this internet off again. Do they have the ability to do that? I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a scary thing, that the results of what we've seen is because of something like that.
I mean, hive mind,
another
probably
rumor
not.
that I heard was that El Salvador's Bitcoin reserve got depleted a while back. I don't know if have you guys heard this rumor?
Yeah.
Depleted? Because I know that he's been buying it like nonstop.
Yeah, the problem is that what they did was they officially adopted Bitcoin, as everybody knows. And so to spur adoption amongst the population, what they did was they allowed for sort of a downloadable wallet, and they gave every citizen $30 in Bitcoin. So what happened was a lot of them actually downloaded the wallet, cashed out their $30, right? And they were off and they never used it again, right? So it's like, oh boy. And that was one of the big sort of lessons learned from the El Salvador sort of, foray into Bitcoin. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, they gotta
the El Salvador airdrop, as it were, right?
Yeah, the largest airdrop in the world.
I feel like I could have told them not to do airdrops, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
jeez.
actually kind of an interesting question. So for Paul, so this Kazakhstan thing, right? So it's a country. I'm sure there's more things that are involved with that. But in traditional finance, right? If you just own like a regular stock, right, and all of a sudden that company does something shady to where they make their price just plummet, right? There's like there are regulatory like policies to charge people with stuff, right? I mean, that's like a really bad thing to happen in traditional finance, right?
Insider trading.
Sure.
So in the crypto space, it's like it doesn't matter. That's why I think it's like the funniest thing. Like, nothing can happen from it. There is no penalty. Even like Eric,
goes
there is
down
insider
to
trading, but there could be events where things just like shit happens, and all of a sudden everyone's like, something bad just happened.
The biggest thing is who are you going to point the finger at, right? So the whole Kazakhstan thing, who was at fault, and then prove that they did it with malicious or intent, right, intentionally, and then get local authorities involved to prosecute them or to deal with them if they feel like it, because they may or may not have broken local law, right? You get these layers and layers and layers of issues that would have to be, basically sorted through and worked out in order to bring any kind of formal, justice to bear, so to speak. So
I just thought of, Will, out of curiosity, FAIT, because I know you guys have access to, FAIT has access to all these different wallets, right? And so exchange wallets, personal wallets. Now, Bitcoin is its own node. So that's off of Binance Smart Chain. It's off of Ethereum, all these other ones. But there is like RenBTC, there's WBTC, there's, that variation on that specific blockchain. Could FAIT perhaps see, I guess what I'm asking is, would WBTC or RenBTC reflect on real BTC and like those mining issues? Because if there's the mining issues, Bitcoin itself will start to drop, right? But then would Wrap BTC and the other ones follow at the same time, or would there be like a delay? Because if FAIT sees that, then she can act accordingly. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and for things like Wrap BTC, I don't entirely know how they're pegging it to BTC itself, but I would expect
that's like a whole nother
lag, right? Go ahead.
That's like a whole nother thing. Like, people hate WBTC because they're saying that it's not backed by anything. The real Bitcoin's still out there.
It's a synthetic asset, and there's many of them coming out now in crypto for various different purposes, right? There's a lot of them now. I don't even know like how to explain to so many different ones that exist. Even just the example on Binance, you have these up and down tokens, right? That are kind of these leveraged products, but they're not actually the real thing. It's just a synthetic token that's managed by the exchange. Right?
I'll just be curious to see maybe there is a connection in the data that FAIT has access to, perhaps where those types of tokens can then connect with Bitcoin. Unless it's
we can look at all the wallets.
FAIT's not on the actual Bitcoin node right now, right? Or is she? Right? I'm not even aware of that. Is she on Bitcoin node, or she's just Binance Smart Chain?
We connect through a third-party service for the Bitcoin node specifically. We run our own Ethereum and BSC nodes right now, but we use a third-party service that we connect through to read the node data for Bitcoin specifically. We do have access to the wallets and stuff like that are on Bitcoin. You can see her posting in the chat like specific references and money movement.
That's interesting.
And you saw even before this market correction, like for like the day before it was like posting message after message after message, like, "Hey guys, I see there's a lot of Bitcoin moving to the exchanges. Maybe we should be careful here."
So are those the notifications that she's also sending in Telegram? Is that where she's saying like there's like a lot of USDCT, whatever, and then Bitcoin in and out of exchanges? The notes that
money flow through exchanges is a huge tell. on what's going to happen. You saw a lot of it the day before the dump, even before the minutes were released. This FAIT was posting over and over and over, like, look at all this Bitcoin getting sent to exchanges.
Yeah. So, because Paul, so on previous shows and Cannonball as well, we always talk about the engineering chat, I guess. And so a lot of us, we don't have access to that because I guess we're getting like thousands and thousands of messages like every minute or whatever it might be.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just a constant flow.
That's the stuff that we're not seeing. But I mean, so Paul, Will, and everybody else in the back end, you're seeing those and you're collecting that data and then deciding how she should kind of interact with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but keep in mind that even though you're not in
Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, Will. So even though for those of you who are not in this mythical engineering chat that we talk about, keep in mind that you're seeing most of the important stuff, right? So as Will mentioned, I mean, I can't underline that enough. When you see Bitcoin leaving exchanges or when you see Bitcoin entering exchanges, that could be a massive bullish or bearish sign depending on which direction it's going, right? And so FAIT was virtually screaming that before the market dropped, both times actually, because it dropped, then it stopped, then it dropped again, right? Mm-hmm. And so you guys saw that, right? So one of the things that we want to do, for instance, is we want to give you guys better alerts around that so that you guys are aware. Yes, FAIT is trading for you, but many of you have coins outside of FAIT as well, and so we want to give you better information. So one of the things we'll do over time is we'll do things like, ask you if you would like email alerts, right? Stefan has been working on that. Right? So that's something that I think is going to be extremely valuable. So if you don't catch it on Telegram, you'll catch it on email, right? But those kinds of alerts, heavily bullish, heavily bearish signs that FAIT watches that are almost universally indicative of bearish or bullish behavior, that's huge. And those are things that you definitely want. So stay tuned for that. I wanted to sort of just rep that in because I think that these alerts are going to be more and more important because if anything, we're seeing that the market gyrations are more in line with, so FAIT's observations as opposed to less over time, right? Which is a good thing. But then riding on some of those really obvious observations like Bitcoin flooding into exchanges or flooding out, that's huge. You got to watch that stuff.
And because Eric teed me up,
it's just not even analyzable by a human. Like,
no.
For example, FAIT analyzes.
You don't want to be an engineering chat,
stablecoins, right? Across the board, and there's like a bunch of different stablecoins, right? Yeah. So FAIT will be like, well, I see like a lot of people are buying stablecoins right now. This is actually really bearish for crypto when that happens. Yeah. And the reason is that they're selling crypto to buy stablecoins as a hedge against crypto going down. Right, so when people do that in mass, and we saw that recently as well. So we had kind of the confluence of two different factors before this correction, where we had a bunch of Bitcoin going to exchanges and a bunch of stable coins being bought at the same time.
And this is what we mean when we say trade like the smart money or trade like the whales or whatever. This is exactly what we're talking about, community. So those folks, because they can move large amounts of money, they can actually sort of see market impacts. Well, you can too, following these alerts. So, and I teed up Stefan. Go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you teed me up so nicely. So if you have not subscribed to our email list yet, make sure you go out and subscribe. You can find the link on our website, our brand spanking new website now. Go out and sign up for it. We're going to begin using our email list, and for those folks that are users of FAIT, that's where we're going to be pushing a lot of information, a lot of content, and frankly, a lot of these alerts. So definitely go sign up. You don't want to miss that kind of stuff. So, make sure that you're on that list and that you'll get all the most recent information you can and stay abreast of everything.
All right, Will, I see you wanted to we're at like the 60-minute mark, but I do want everybody to see the charts. I think this is going to be the nice, aside from everything else, Community Council introducing Paul. I want to end this on a positive note. Please tell us that everything is going well. Please, I need to know my own health and sanity right now.
I want to end on a positive note. Please tell us good stuff.
There's been too much bleeding out in the streets. Help us.
You don't have to just tell us it looks good, but show the chart. So you want me to pull it up for you?
Sure. We can end on this. You guys know I always start with the macro, right? So I drew this line a while back where I expect the equities market to kind of have this leveling off curve, and we're kind of starting to see it now, where we had this kind of whipsaw action in equities, and now it's kind of going to level off. This red on the bottom here is the 5-year bond. It's spiking pretty high, which means to me that there's a lot of basically people going to cash, right, and leaving equities. One of the things to note is that Bitcoin is often talked about as an inflation hedge. And I think the jury may be out a little bit on that still, but it's a popular opinion, and it might be true. If that's the case, then we have this kind of extended sideways equities market. People will be looking to find things as a hedge against inflation and where they can generate profits despite equities just being flat for the year.
Well, on that note, though, so people are converting to cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say at the start of December, mid-December, that's when the majority of people in crypto also had converted to cash. So it's currently just sitting on the sidelines, right? And they're just waiting for the prime opportunity to kind of just get right back in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but when the Federal Reserve releases very hawkish statements, it makes people pause and see how things play out before they decide to re-enter the market, right? So this is kind of what we're seeing now, where we had this bullish thing, we had this typical year-end dump, but then it just continued because of these Federal Reserve minutes that were released. This is my original prediction, as you know, right? That didn't happen, but we'll see. This is a very natural support area around 40K. And we still have very positive news coming up around the SEC review of the Grayscale ETF. I still think that's a huge thing. And I'd be very surprised if we didn't have a run-up in expectation of that passing.
So what's the date for the Grayscale thing? So that
is February 6th, I think.
Yeah, because whenever we share the screen, our thumbnails cover the bottom with the dates. So
sorry. Down here is the Stablecoin Balance. I don't know if you guys ever noticed that in my chart. I don't know if you can really see that. But you see here, look at these bars about how the stablecoins got unbalanced before this dump. Happened once here before this dump even. The one that was like in the beginning of December happened over here. This I found interesting. I added this note because this was when the ProShares Futures ETF launched, which also timed right at the market top. And for those of you that were around in 2017, futures timed almost perfectly with the dump at the end of 2017 as well. So that actually wasn't very surprising that this was correlated. So this green line is typically, if you buy here, you're almost guaranteed to make money. And I'll zoom this out so you can see. This is kind of the log support chart. This is my these are all these parts that were back in 2018. There's this huge meme at the time where the pattern was just going up, across, and then down, across, and up. And it looked like these Barts. I don't know if you guys were around at that time.
The Bart Chart.
Yeah, it's the Bart Chart. So if you look here, going all the way back, if you buy basically anywhere around this green line, you're golden. This is a trend line that's existed for years and years and years.
Nice.
Right? COVID crash came under that, and then you made like 20x from that. I guess it's 15 I timed this one, yeah. Right. So we're real close to that line. So I really don't expect it to even crosses this line to go very far under it, honestly. But I mean, in the moment, we're in a little bit of a wait and see to see when people start trying to re-enter the market. But right now, I think a lot of people are scared due to the entirely due to the Federal Reserve.
Yep.
And
that line isn't too far down. That's at this time frame, it's about what, 30, 32, 30, if anything.
Mm-hmm. So this was the summer, right? We came down in here. Bear channel, second bear channel, another bear channel. So, I mean, bears are just having heyday right now. People who are shorting it up here, and they're very happy at this point, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. So,
yep.
We had a rejection of this moving average, which is, I think, the 200 moving day moving average, which is also significant. So,
well, I like that. I like how you're explaining with the, I guess, that golden line. I mean, it's increasing a little bit as we go along, but seeing BTC still way above that, I mean, that's, I mean, it could obviously still go into full.
It's not very far above it, honestly. It's within range. Yeah, and another thing that I typically see in markets is when you have this kind of initial directionality change in markets, I'll typically see this kind of predictive candle where it'll like go all the way down and then close almost near where it started. That was this candle here. And it usually is a telling sign of where the market will ultimately head. And you saw that this basically played out where we had this predictive candle here where we had this wick all the way down to 42K, came back up, but then ultimately bears pushed it back to 42K all over again. So, I mean, this is something I've seen time and time again in markets. And I wish that I had basically talked about it in our live show last week, but I think I was so bullish that I didn't think about it like, well, what about the bear case, right? As an analyst, you always need to be thinking about like, well, what if I'm wrong and the other situation plays out? And let's think about the other case, right? So I'll actually take responsibility of that I was so bullish at the time that I was kind of blind to the bear case that was here, right? But I think going forward, we should explain both scenarios. And I think this is, for a lot of influencers, their weakness is that they will develop an opinion and only talk about that opinion and not talk about the opposite scenario that could happen, right?
Yep.
So I think the bear scenario is that this is just a whole bunch of descending channels. People waited out due to inflation and all this rate hikes and all this stuff. And it goes, to this green channel here and then rebounds, right? Which is around, 32K or something like that, which is also this bottom from the summer, right? The bull case is that markets reverse and we have this kind of pulling up from equities because equities are getting pretty oversold now. They'll start, the bull case I think here is that equities pull Bitcoin back up to kind of create similar structure. And then this volume profile around 42K gets filled in. And then this price level is then defended. What happens in that scenario is that we then create a floor here, right? And then this becomes bullish, this SEC review. So then what happens in that scenario is that we bottom out here, we have some consolidation, then this goes up to the review. Assuming the review passes and we get a grayscale ETF, that then is very bullish, and then we go straight up from there. Mm-hmm. Right, I think that's the bull case at this point. Right, the mid-range case, right, is that neither bull, neither bear plays out. Is that we have this pumps to the grayscale review, the ETF is rejected by the SEC, and then we create this structure, which then looks like a head and shoulders. Right, that's not what you really want to see in crypto. So hopefully that doesn't play out. Let's delete that. So.
No bad mojo there.
We want an ETF for crypto. It's a good thing.
Yes.
Right? It means that the SEC is taking crypto seriously and they think that there's a future for the asset class. They keep coming back again and again and again saying that it's too risky. There's too much manipulation, blah, blah, blah. It's we don't have clarity around how to regulate it. This, to me, the approval of this would indicate it would be a good sign that they're starting to ask the hard questions and think about promoting it.
There's only so much more time where they could keep, pushing this stuff off. It's bound to happen eventually.
Eventually it will. It's just a question of when, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a question of when. And it's just getting more and more complex as crypto evolves, because now we have this idea of tokenized stocks. We have this idea of NFTs, and it's getting more and more creative. And, the SEC is still way back in 2017. We're like, what is crypto? Like, what is a Bitcoin?
Yeah.
They're so behind. So they have a lot of catching up to do.
Yep. The more innovative and the more projects that come out, they're actually, I think, just like a chess match, they're going to eventually be forced to make a decision ultimately, right? You can't just let everything to keep kind of going the way that's at. They got to just step up and be like, make a decision already. That's it.
Yeah. It's time.
Well, maybe the equities market going sideways is an impetus for that, right? Because people will be screaming for places to generate returns.
True. All right, guys, we're actually a little bit over the hour mark. A lot of information today. So much more questions to be asked, specifically, again, for Paul and for FAIT as well going forward. I would like to end this on a positive note that I do believe that it will be approved and we will have a nice run going forward. That's my whole approach to that one. I want to see everything go back up. That's it.
We saw the ProShares ETF was approved, right? So there is a little bit of a precedent to generate hope around that. So if that one can be approved, Grayscale would be the one to do it. Like, these are the guys that have nearly unlimited power and money to kind of push their opinions.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
We're going to see it. So this one, what was the exact date for this also? So this was February 6th?
I think it's the 6th.
Yeah. So I think by late January, there's an uptrend. I mean, that kind of alludes to something positive happening regardless, right? In both scenarios, whether it's going up or down. And then it's just after the fact to see, I guess, what.
And that coincides with historically, if you graph all the previous years in Bitcoin where there was a bear market in November, December, and it went through January, typically ends in January, like mid-January, end of January. So somewhere in that time range, depending on the year, right?
February 6th, this may be one of those events where you might not want to sell the news, right? Could go either way based on those charts.
Well, yeah. I mean, if the ETF is approved, then basically everybody who sold equities to sit on cash they'd be able to buy this crypto ETF, right?
Yep. And probably will, right? Because everybody's going to be searching for another asset class to get into.
Yeah, right. What else are they going to buy? It's either that or gold,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
All right, guys. An hour over. Paul, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Cannonball,
good to have you, Paul.
Do we want
Great to have you on board, Paul.
Do you want to give any information about UpLink, or just stick to community council?
We are getting real close to divulging what UpLink is. Stay tuned. We're not far off at this point. We're just getting to the point where we are wrapping up, starting to QA. I mean, it's starting to get real close. So hang in there. We'll announce it soon.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. I'll reach out. Paul, I want to get you on the show if anybody else wants to join. I just have so many more questions. I love it. I love the whole financial aspect of it.
There we go.
Thank you for joining.
All right.
Team, see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Be well.
See y'all.